Inappropriate fellowship. To avoid losing our moral bearings, we must not have fellowship with unbelievers who are living immoral and evil lives. Here now is Dr. Gene Getz.
Genesis 13:12-13 reads, Abram lived in the land of Canaan, but Lot lived in the cities of the valley and set up his tent near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were evil, sinning greatly against the Lord. And when you go on in the biblical story, you'll find that Lot, once he moved close to the city, the next thing that happens, he's in the city. And he loves the city. And his wife loves the city. And he becomes so enamored with it that when the angels of God came in to lead him out, he didn't want to leave. They had to pull him out. And he went, but his wife went reluctantly, looking back, longing for Sodom. It's hard to believe. And you know the result of that in terms of God's judgment on her. Now, if you go on to 13:18, we read, So Abram moved his tent, and he went to live beside the oaks of Mamre at Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord. And this is desert. This is not the Jordan Valley. And keep in mind this desert situation, because it's going to come up in a future principle. But let's go back to this inappropriate fellowship. And let me read that principle again. To avoid losing our moral bearings, we must avoid having fellowship with unbelievers who are living immoral and evil lives. What happened to Lot once he got into that city and associated in that city, became friends with people in that city, became participants, as it were? He lost his ability to make moral judgments. His judgments as a believer. We know from 2 Peter he was a believer. He lost his ability to make moral judgments. He lost the will to do what was right. And that can happen to a Christian, because it happened a lot. Now, 2 Corinthians supports this principle. Principle 10, we should maintain spiritual fellowship with authentic spiritual leaders and avoid relationships with false prophets and teachers that will deceive us. If you look at the context of this principle, you will see that he was talking particularly about association with people who are in leadership who have a lifestyle that is wrong, that is sinful. But it applies to all of us. And so, in 2 Corinthians, Paul says, do not be mismatched. Notice the words, mismatched with unbelievers. For what partnership? What partnership is there between righteousness and lawlessness? This is partnership. Or what fellowship does light have with darkness? This is light and darkness trying to mix. You see, these words are very graphic. What agreement does Christ have with Belial, which is evil, or Satan? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? And there, the word common is related back to agreement and fellowship and partnership and being mismatched. You have to get the whole picture. And what agreement does God's sanctuary have with idols? For we are the sanctuary of the living God. We are that sanctuary. The Corinthians were participating in evil, in the temples, in immorality, and all of those things that are described in the book of 1 Corinthians. And so the question is a challenging one for all of us. How can we be a witness in the world without becoming like the world? We can't leave the world. We shouldn't leave the world. We're to be light and salt in the world. But how can we do that? In other words, how can we develop friendships without having close fellowship? I believe in friendship evangelism. We can be friends, but there's a line that we cannot cross in terms of participating in sinful and approving of sinful behavior. Even approving it by our presence. And that takes a lot of wisdom to be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove. And so we need a lot of wisdom, because we are to be light and salt in this world. Sometimes it means graciously excusing ourselves from situations without being arrogant and judgmental. Situations that are compromising situations. And by the way, most people in our culture today will respect you for not compromising. It's getting to the place where they will persecute you. But we still live among a lot of people that respect people that are honest, who do it in a non-judgmental way, out of conviction. But it's getting to the place in business where if we refuse to be deceitful, we may lose our job. The real challenge. I remember when I was in college trying to make money to go to school and pay my tuition, and I took a sales job, and I still remember when I was in this training part, and this guy took me under his wing to train me, and he said, "Now, Gene, you need to understand there's a white lie that goes with this." And I said, "A what?" He said, "A white lie." And he said, I guarantee you if you don't tell a white lie, you'll fail. You cannot succeed in sales. I went with him. He demonstrated and told a white lie. I said, I'm not going to tell a white lie. I'm going to tell the truth. I failed. I couldn't sell. Because the white lie is what made the sale. I couldn't continue that job. Because I couldn't tell a lie. I couldn't deceive people. I couldn't manipulate people. My conscience wouldn't let me. And that our world is filled with situations where we twist the truth in order to manipulate people. And that's not right. And sometimes we'll pay a big price for that. I've seen people pay a big price for that. And I've also seen God honor, but it doesn't mean because we make the right decision that it's going to be a happy conclusion. To lose your job is serious. And some people lose their job because they're honest. And that's going to get worse in our culture, in our society. So that principle is very important because once you start compromising, what happens? You lose your moral bearings. You lose your ability to make right judgments. You even lose your ability to do what is right. It happened a lot, and the end result was devastating. And boy, what a lesson that comes out of that.